Powered by Riverside.
That's too bad. You are watching or listening to the That's Too Bad podcast, hosted by Wally Wallaceck. All right, what's going on, everybody? Wally Wallaceck here. That's Too Bad podcast. I know I've been MIA for a little bit here. We've had a lot of things transpire since last time we've spoken, and we're going to try to dive into as much as possible and cover as much as possible. Before we get into it, though, I do want to make this announcement is that starting really right now, going to 2025, my goal is to pump out more podcast episodes, pump out more social media content. And again, I'm going to go into kind of why I've been MIA, nothing bad or anything like that. But yeah, that's my goal, because at the end of the day, I want to build this brand, want to cover as much golf as possible for you guys, the listeners, and for the followers on social media. And yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, we just want to talk golf. But to really start, what have I been up to over the last 2 months, really? Since the last, technically when I recorded, I know I published my episode a little bit later than when I recorded it. And I mean, a lot of things have been going on. Went on vacation to Myrtle Beach like I do every year with my in-laws and brother-in-laws, sister-in-laws, etc. Normally would golf 6 days out there, and always, I mean, every course is great out there that I've ever played in the last 4 years. This year, a little thing called Hurricane Debbie kind of got the best of us. So I only golfed 3 rounds out of the 6, and basically watched monsoon after monsoon come through the remainder of the trip. How did I play those 3 days, though? I mean, I played all right. First day, I know I was playing really well up until we got delayed on. I hit a great shot at 18, then they blew the horn on me right after I swung my second shot. 2 out of 3 rounds, though, I shot like around 77, 76. My one bad round, I think I shot 82, 83. So I wasn't too happy but all 3 courses were great condition, great layouts. The 82, 83, the one that course really got to me. I believe that was the day we played a course called Arrowhead, if I'm not mistaken, and talk about narrow shit. If there weren't a forest of trees, there was a huge pond on the other side. I mean, basically, wasn't really much rough. If you didn't hit the fairway, you were done. And I basically learned through the front 9 that I'm not hitting driver anymore. That day was a day that I had a hard time controlling the driver, which normally this year usually has been kind of automatic for me. Little baby cut right up the middle. But that didn't really happen for me. But yeah. And then from there on, I mean, from there till where we're at now, I played sparingly. And why have I played sparingly? And that's just because I've been doing a lot of other things. I mean, I have my day job, obviously. But the other thing that I've been working on since really I got back from vacation was, like I've probably have mentioned it once or twice on the podcast, is that I've been building out my basement. So I really wanted to put that in full drive, get that done before Christmas. So that's really kind of pulled me away from the podcasting a little bit here and there. But now that I'm kind of in the home stretch, that's why I want to make this announcement that I'm going to start recording a lot more, really to end this year, and more specifically going into 2025. And then obviously just life in between, right? I mean, football season, I got my wife's 2 little cousins that are varsity players. So I go Friday Night Lights. Being a former football player, I don't miss football games. Or I try not to. If I'm not there, I'm watching them on TV. Family stuff going on. just life around the house. So that's really what's kind of kept me from recording the podcast. And for those that have been waiting for the next episode, I'm glad you guys have stuck around. Uh, Hopefully that, like I said, we're going to continue making more podcasts coming up. Um, but what has happened in the game of golf since we've last spoken? Last time I recorded, I believe the Open Championship, the last major of the year, was about to take off. And, well, I mean, let's just cover it. Xander Schauffele wins not only the second major of his career, but it was the second major of his career in the same year. As we know, he won previously earlier in the summer, and now he comes out here, Open Championship. And I mean, really, I mean, what I believe I talked on an episode or two before is what makes a good major, and the Open Championship classifies as a great major. Not in general, but I'm talking about this specific year. Like, what do I think is what makes up a great major? And that is, it's coming down to the last few holes on Sunday. And I mean, it truly did for Xander, a guy that came in to the final round, and I mean, he really had to play near perfect golf, tee to green, on the green for 18 holes, and the guy really did. I mean, he played pretty much flawless golf on Sunday. And reason I say this is because there was a lot of going back and forth throughout the round. Billy Horschel, who was in the mix, I was kind of pulling for the Gator to get his first major win. And I mean, he was right there, but again, what he couldn't do is what Xander did. He couldn't close it out the last remaining few holes. Justin Rose was in the mix, guy that's, you know, look at his resume. It's already a Hall of Fame resume, was in the mix. And then guy named Tristan Lawrence, who I mean, up until that, I didn't know who really that guy was. Guy I think that plays a little on the DP World Tour and some of the smaller tours out overseas. I mean, that's a guy that I think we're going to see on the PGA Tour in a couple, you know, if not next year, in a couple years. He played outstanding golf. I mean, obviously, I think he's more well tuned for the Open Championship style, atmosphere, conditions, etc. But I mean, he played phenomenally for 4 rounds to really put himself in a good position Sunday. I mean, at some point, Justin Rose kind of fell off a little bit towards the back nine, and it was really between Horschel, Lawrence, and Xander. And like I said, Lawrence and Horschel, then their wheels kind of fell off, and Xander just pushed on. But again, it was going back and forth. I mean, classic Open Championship golf. It was cold, windy, rainy. I don't know if they ever saw sunlight. If they did, it was sparingly. Definitely didn't see it on Sunday. And what made, I think, Xander's win even more significant is that not only do you have to really be good tee to green, but Xander, we're not talking he's making 2-3 foot putts for bird. I mean, he had to make some significant lengthy putts for birdie and some for par, and he did it. So I mean, there's one big factor for Xander why he won the Open Championship this year and why he's been a phenomenal golfer this year in general is that putter. His putting style, the cross hand, uh, the grip through the palm of his hand that's really locked in, so there's no motion, there's no swaying, and his green speed, and I mean him reading the green, he's right now, I would have to put him up there as one of the top guys that can read the greens. I think Bryson right now might be number one in my book. Xander's definitely going to be 2 or 3, and you guys are probably thinking, well, what about Scottie Scheffler? Guys had one of the most impressive years since we've seen in a while, since probably Tiger Woods. I'm not disagreeing, but I wouldn't put Scottie Scheffler's. I mean, ever since he made the putter switch to the mallet, Scottie Scheffler's been a better putter. Uh, I don't think he is a top 5 reader of greens though with that putter right now. Still a great putter, but I think right now Bryson, even we all make fun of him for years with all the math and science that goes on in his head to calculate everything. Well, shit, I mean, if you're smart enough to do it, and he clearly is, And we saw, I mean, it won him a major. It's won him two majors now. It's won him multiple tournaments. It's got him a lucrative deal over at Live. And it's not just because he can hit the ball 400 yards. I mean, at the end of the day, you can hit the ball 400 yards, but if you can't chip and putt, you're not going to do much. And I mean, I've always criticized Bryson. He's not the best short game chip. I think this year, though, that really kind of changes my perspective on him. But he's always been one of the top putters since he's been on tour, and ever really since he's gotten into that arm lock style putter. He's between that and reading the greens and understanding the green speeds. Bryson is one of the best out there. And again, go back. I think Xander's right there, right behind him, and I mean, it would make sense. I mean, if I had to really rank the top three golfers right now for 2024, I mean, by resume, pedigree, and everything he accomplished this year, Scotty's number one. I'm I, I'm not a hater on Scotty. I Scotty kind of being the face of the PGA these days. I love it. I think he's great for golf. Scotty's obviously number one. I would put Bryson right now at number two. Again, he didn't win two majors this year, right? So you probably think, why isn't Xander number two? Uh, reason being, I mean, Bryson has won a major before this year. So that resume has already been a little bit lengthier than Xander's. So right now, that kind of sways me to give Bryson a little bit of the nod ahead. I mean, they're right there neck and neck with each other. Xander's obviously, though, number three. I mean, those three best golfers right now in the world, live PGA, however you want to slice it, uh, and so forth. So, um, you know, and then Xander kind of continued that this year. I mean, he played well in the President's Cup, and I think he was in the mix for the Olympics, if I'm not mistaken, but ultimately didn't win a medal, clearly. But the guy's has a great year. I mean, he's had a couple non-major wins. Uh, Xander's had a hell of a year. I mean, then that wrapped it up, and then obviously, where do we go from here? From the PGA side of it, at least, and that's the FedEx Cup playoffs. Now, I'm going to get into two things. I'm going to cover what happened in the FedEx briefly, and then I'm going to give my spiel on my opinion, I should say, on the FedEx Cup playoffs in general. So, I mean, real quickly, let's wrap it up. What happened in the FedEx Cup playoffs? I mean, first off, the St. Jude Championship. We saw kind of a battle between, again, Xander and Scotty were up there in the mix. Victor Hovland, who really talk about a guy that had a down year compared to last year. All the swing changes he was making, going back and forth, and he with swing coaches goes back to his original coach to kind of get him back on. Interesting year for Victor Hovland. I really hope and expect bigger things for him in 2025. Guy that needs to really rebound after a very down 2024 year. But he was in the mix, and then Hideki Matsuyama. I mean, we know Matsuyama's pedigree. We know he could be a phenomenal golfer, and he's one of the top ball strikers on tour. But what was lacking this year was his putting. And I mean, I think this has kind of been the trend this year was make a putter change. I mean, we've seen obviously Scotty Scheffler go from the blade. I think he mixed it up with a couple different blades and then goes to the mallet putter. And as soon as he went to that mallet, boom, started winning again. Justin Thomas, who's kind of been a head case with putters, I think as of just recently, he went back to his first ever putter when he was on tour, which was a mallet Scotty Cameron putter. And Hideki was going through putting issues, makes a change. Same, just made the change of a blade putter, goes to a newer version of the Scotty Cameron, and ends up winning the St. Jude Championship. Before that, takes the bronze medal in the Olympics. So putting changes or putting equipment changes, sometimes it seems like, at least on tour, that was the 2024 resolution for quite a few different golfers out there. Didn't work for me, though. And then right after that, we go to the BMW Championship. BMW, I think, was a little bit more significant for me, at least, as far as, how cool with who won the tournament, and that is being Keegan Bradley. And because the Keegan saga just continues on, going back to not making the Ryder Cup team, which again, I mean, I'm not going to go back into that because I've done a couple of rants already on it, but Keegan probably lucked out not being on that Ryder Cup team, that disaster of a team. um, but him and Adam Scott, who I think a lot of people going into this year really weren't going to have him as a guy that will be contending as much anymore in major championships, at least in top five and winning them. But he'll a guy that I think people now are, as he's gotten older, make the cut. I mean, kind of similar to maybe now Tiger Woods. Everybody's happy to see him, and you hope for the best, but are you winning the major? I don't think many have Adam Scott at the top of their list. Um, and that really became the BMW became the Adam Scott Keegan Bradley battle, and so that was cool. I wasn't cool for Adam Scott to win, but it was more awesome to see Keegan Bradley win. And really, right after that, Jim Furyk then uses his President's Cup captain's pick, and instead of having Keegan as an assistant captain, which I think everybody was leaning towards that was going to happen to kind of get him ready to be the captain of the Ryder Cup team next year, he is now competing as a player. And we'll get into the President's Cup in a little bit here, but the cool part about that was Keegan Bradley, again, the saga continues, and we won't really know the ending of this until the end of the Ryder Cup next year. Makes the final putt, not the final putt, but he solidifies his matchup Sunday to be the final point that capped off Team USA's win the President's Cup. So the Keegan Bradley story just continues, and this 2024 season has just it's been more good for his story than last year with the Ryder Cup not making the team when he should have. I thought he obviously earned his way onto the team. And then lastly, obviously we know the Tour Championship at East Lake, which really was kind of a two-person race. So was it fun watching again, similar to like how I thought the Masters was? You watch it, but at this point you're kind of watching the battles between third down to 10th, etc. Because this year East Lake, it was really between Morikawa and Scotty, and obviously when you go into the Tour Championship, we all know, uh, it's already staggered in the starting scores. Scotty was already 10 under before he teed off, 8 under, etc. And and then Scotty obviously he wins the Tour Championship. Now I get it. I feel like they do this because they want the guy that has played his way to being number one in the FedEx Cup standings, which means you're winning a lot on tour majors, non-majors. You're setting yourself up for success. And Scotty obviously did that this year. I mean, he's won numerous tournaments. He wins the major, wins the Masters. He won the Olympic gold this year. Was on the President's Cup team. They went. I mean, his 2024 year, his resume is phenomenal. Outside of getting arrested with that unfortunate issue, and then the guy then becomes a father. I mean, this guy's had a year he'll never forget, the good and the bad, to be honest with you. So I get it. They set these guys up for success because they've worked their asses off to get there. My problem is that as a viewer, it's not as fun watching, to be honest, because it's really the tour is basically saying, hey, we really want this tournament to be a race between these 3, 4 guys. I mean, there's chances 4 days that someone towards the mid to bottom could maybe shoot up, depending on how they score. But we know at Eastlake it's difficult to do that. And I don't know, it's just you get the top 30 in this tournament, the top 30 that earned it, give each person a chance equally. If Scotty is truly the best this year in the FedEx Cup standings, make him earn it. Not saying that he didn't earn it now, because I mean, he could have imploded, and who knows would have won. Morikawa, uh, you know, Sam Burns, whoever was in the top 30. I just don't like that you get that little nudge forward to to win the Tour Championship. And again, too, does the FedEx Tour Championship really mean as much to the players like a major? Uh, we know the Players Championship is held in very high regard, and if outside of winning the four majors, you want to win the Players. Do you want to win a FedEx Cup championship? At the end of the day, I mean, again, I don't know any of these golfers. My guess, though, would be no. Is it cool to win? Is it something they're striving towards? I would say probably not. I mean, when you look like guys like Brooks Koepka, guy has admitted he really only cares about the majors. Not only the majors are paying out the big bucks, but I mean, that's really, I mean, if you look at the history of all golfers going back, Snap Snead, Arnold Palmer, etc., what do we talk about? We talk about all the majors they've won. We're not talking about, hey, remember when, you know, Nick Faldo won the Honda Civic Classic? I mean, I'm making that shit up, but, you know, no one's really talking about that. We talk about how many green jackets Tiger Woods has won, how many majors Phil has won, how many majors Arnold Palmer won, RIP. So at the end of the day, you know, I couldn't tell you the last time I had a conversation with somebody when we're talking golf. Oh yeah, but so and so's got three FedEx Cup championships because really, like the pedigree is just not there. I kind of blame the tour for that. The tour, I think, has an opportunity to turn that into a players' championship pedigree. They need to get not only the players more intrigued in this playoff system, but really you got to get the fans more involved and interested in this because I mean realistically, once the Open was over, I mean I'm wondering if I can find statistics on this. I would have to imagine the viewership drops until the President's or Ryder Cup. This year would have been the President's Cup. So I mean, do I think they'll make changes to this? Definitely not in the next 5 years. But I truly believe that this needs to be something that Jay Monahan, who's got a lot of shit on his plate, that's not being really done right now, in my opinion. This needs to be one of them because, I mean, at the end of the day, these guys, I think they're just, the FedEx points really just mean it for the Ryder Cup at this point. They, not really for the Tour Championship as much. Tour Championship helps, but or finishing in the top whatever helps. But at the end of the day, we know the FedEx Cup points really mean more, at least in my opinion, to these golfers when it comes to a Ryder Cup year because that top six is making the Ryder Cup. That, to me, is probably the Tour Championship in their eyes, making the Ryder Cup team and not forcing the captain to put himself in that position to use a captain's pick on you. Because now you have to basically kind of demonstrate and almost convince and everything else to the captain, whoever that year will be in this coming up year will be Keegan Bradley. When you're not in the top six, why should you be on this team? What did you do this year that's good? I mean, I don't know what questions these captains and assistant captains are asking when they're doing their captain's picks. Again, I'm not going to circle back to Zach Johnson because I've beaten that like a dead horse already a couple different times on the podcast here and some of my social media, Instagram posts. So I'm not going to circle back to that, but that is, going back to the Tour Championship and the FedEx points. I think just something's got to be changed and done differently to make the FedEx playoff, if you're going to continue to have a playoff, more intriguing, again, to the players and especially the fans. So that's just my spiel there. So FedEx Cup playoffs, right before the FedEx obviously finished, we had the Olympics. I just touched base briefly on that. I didn't get to really watch it as much as I was on vacation and dealing with a hurricane, but the highlights I saw, I think the expectations were there wasn't going to be a lot of fans in Paris watching golf. even on TV, not just being live. And I think that really surprised a lot of, it's kind of surprised me a little bit. I mean, I, again, did my best to watch highlights as best I could, but um, from what I saw, the course was packed with fans for both the women and the men. And the viewership, from what I read, was pretty high too for the Olympics. I don't think the course was like a major caliber as far as the toughness. It looked like a pretty cool, typical European style course, league style. Um, and then again, I mean, Scotty Scheffler caps off a phenomenal year, wins the gold medal, something that, he'll be able to cherish just like a major championship for a very long time for the rest of his life. One of the cooler things that I think happened in the Olympics was for Tommy Fleetwood, a guy that just hasn't been able to capitalize on a major yet, has been a phenomenal golfer. He's a very well liked within the golf community, within the fan base. He's very likable. I know when the majors come around, there's a lot of fans pulling for him. I'm one of them, and guy comes in and gets the silver medal. So it's real cool to see. Again, it's not a major, but it is a stepping stone for this guy in what hopes to be maybe a good 2025 year starting in Augusta. And then I mentioned earlier Hideki Matsuyama, who went through the putting change, and as soon as he changes putters, start really connecting the dots again, wins the bronze medal, and then obviously, like I said back a minute ago, wins the St. Jude Championship in the FedEx Cup playoffs. So after the Olympics, like we were just talking about the FedEx Cup and we're talking the Ryder Cup, but what happened in 2024? We had the President's Cup. President's Cup, let's kind of preface it first, is that it doesn't hold as high of a regard as the Ryder Cup, right? And why is that? Well, one, President's Cup's been around for 30 years, a lot shorter than the Ryder Cup, and at least to my knowledge. And then on top of it, the President's Cup, Team USA has beaten the international team every cup except for one where they tied. So versus the Ryder Cup, it's gone back and forth. It's very competitive, the Europeans versus Team USA. So when the Team USA versus an international team is struggling to cap off their first win, it comes around, and I think from the fan base, it's, is this worth my time watching? Maybe I'll have it on the background while I'm doing something. And I mean, if you just think about the history, it's very well in reason, I would say. Team USA has historically really dominated this event, and day one looked like it was going to be nothing but the same. Swept and go up 4-0. I watched day one. I mean, there was a lot of good for the international team. Again, Tom Kim, who's like right now, I think he's the nucleus of this international team from 2 years ago when he was, again, I mean, he's still young, but one of the young guys 2 years ago, and really was like all the energy and buzz going on for that international team 2 years ago. Same thing here. I mean, here's the thing. Mike Weir was the captain. I said it really kind of after day one when you kind of saw how the players were interacting with Adam Scott, who was on the team. And Adam Scott, who's obviously been on numerous international teams, he's won a master. He's got a Hall of Fame resume. So a lot of these younger guys are looking up to him, not only for advice and guidance as they go into the President's Cup, but I almost felt like they were trying to win this for Adam Scott more than Mike Weir at sometimes, just because of, Adam Scott's been on numerous President's Cup teams and just hasn't been able to get that victory. And it's not just because of him. And again, it's a team event. But that international team not only is going to be very good in the 2 years from now, but when you got Matsuyama, Sungjae Im, Siwoo Kim, and Tom Kim, I mean, those four really were they were the ones that led away for the international team. Adam Scott played very well. And I think one of the bigger letdowns were, except for uh, I'm killing myself forgetting his name, but like Corey Connors really, I didn't think he really showed up too much. Some of the Canadian guys just, I was just kind of let down. I mean, and they were playing in Montreal. You would think these Canadians were uh, really try to be the ones that carry this team, technically in their homeland, and Mike Weir, the captain, the Canadian, but this team really was driven by, and Mike Weir set them up for success too, because in day two, international teams swept the U.S. team, and I kind of blame Jim Furyk for this a little bit. Jim Furyk. So I mean, in day one, Xander and Tony Finau played together. They were playing phenomenally together. Why would you split that up? It just didn't make sense to me. So he brings in Patrick Cantlay, and I get it. They're talking about Patrick Cantlay and Xander. They feed off one another because they're longtime friends, they're best buddies, etc. So what we put them together in day two. And Patrick Cantlay though didn't. I mean, really did nothing day two. Didn't help Xander, and I mean, and I think that really fed into Xander's play because he didn't play well day two too much either. And then what happens in day three? Fury put Finau and Xander back together, and boom, they were off to the races again. So I kind of blame Furyk for some of the decision making in day two for why they got swept, but the decision making by Mike Weir was even better. Matsuyama and Sanjay M paired up together. Every time one guy hits a good ball, the other guy hit a better ball. It, the energy feeding off those two was incredible. And it started really on hole one, and it just proceeded through the rest of the round for them to win their matchup. And then you get to Siwoo Kim and Tom Kim. I'm more emotion in that group, but the same thing. Uh, if Siwoo Kim hit a bad shot, Tom Kim's like, "Don't worry, I got you. I'm gonna hit a better shot." And even if one of them hit a good shot, the other one's like, "Hey, that's a pretty good shot. I'm going to try to get it closer, or I'm going to try to drain this." It was just, it was something you almost see kind of in Ryder Cups, to be honest with you, because you really haven't seen it too much in the President's Cup, because again, there's not, and historically has not been that type of camaraderie between the international team and then that friction between the U.S. team. And that's what even made this day two Tom Kim, Siwoo Kim matchup with Scotty. And I'm blanking on who Scotty was paired with that day. Can't remember if it was Burns or not, or Henley. Um, but Tom Kim, who they mentioned during the round, that he's very good friends with Scotty Scheffler. In fact, that Tom Kim lives in Texas and lives nearby where Scotty lives, so they see each other all the time. They hang out all the time, and you know, I think Tom Kim wanted to rub that in Scotty's face. Hey, Tom Kim's like, "You've had a good year. Don't get me wrong, but you're not beating me here." And it was kind of like you almost were watching Rory versus Patrick Reed from a few Ryder Cups ago. They were kind of trying to get under one another's skin a little bit. Tom Kim made a huge putt, and all the emotion pours out. And I mean, and it's a President's Cup; it should. And it's all in good fun. Again, no bad sportsmanship that I saw. And Scotty being Scotty, he's not going to let that slide, and drain the putt to quiet him. But those four for the international team, and again, what the Team USA needs to worry about for future Presidents Cups are those four guys, especially Tom Kim and Siwoo Kim being probably the youngest on the teams. Um, that duo it was hard not to kind of root a little bit for I wanted Team USA to win, don't get me wrong, but when they would ever flip to Siwoo Kim and Tom Kim, I was like, all right, let's see some more magic, because this was fun to watch. And I think so after day two, we're now split 4-4. Now really day three is going to be a huge day. And again, I think the international team really tried to bring that momentum from day two into day three. I think it kind of started that way, but towards the end, the wheels were falling off a little bit. I think the all that pent up momentum and everything started wearing them out a little bit because then you saw in day three, especially the second half of the day, uh, Patrick Cantley finally started turning it around, which was nice to see. Xander, being Xander, the two-time major winner this year, started making a lot of shots and making a lot of putts, and really was kind of dousing the momentum a little bit, especially for the Tom Kim, Siwoo Kim, and so forth. But the international team was not out of it after day three. In fact, going into single, one-on-one matchups, which normally favors the Team USA a little bit better. I mean, if the matchups were not picked perfectly by Furyk, which at for a moment it looked like the international team was going to make the U.S. team really sweat this out towards the end, towards the back end of the matchups. Um, you know, the international team really showed up to play this year, and I really think that because I think there was rumblings that is this worth keeping it around, or do we change this up now? You know, do we incorporate the LPGA into this and do a men's international USA event, which I'm not opposed to. I think that would be a phenomenal idea. Um, but there was a lot of rumblings going into this President's Cup. Is this just going to be another Team USA, not just a win, but kind of a slaughter, essentially, uh, for a poor choice of a word. Because at the end of the day, kind of going back to like what I preach about with the majors, no one wants to see a complete blowout, especially early on in the tournament. You want to see your team win, whether you're for the international team or the U.S. team. This is a Ryder Cup if you're for the European team or the U.S. team. But you want to see competitive golf. You want to see the back and forth. You want to see kind of the shit talking and in respectfully a way of the showboating, and uh, and that really you want to see that for the 3-4 days. Um, so when President's Cups over for a while has really just been a USA ass whooping. I think it's easy to say, hey, we might need to change this up because and I'm sure this comes down to the viewerships. Do we have enough fans watching this? Not just here live, but watching it on TV. They can't be here, and I think this President's Cup saved that. Um, and like I said, I think the coming President's Cups, the international team has a lot to look forward to. I mean, Minwoo Lee, a young guy, obviously, that can bomb the ball. And there's more up and coming guys that I'm sure I don't know about, both Corn Ferry, college. Maybe there's guys on Live. Again, it's ridiculous that the Live guys get excluded from this shit, which is why I think Keegan Bradley is another phenomenal captain because the first thing he says was, I'm not excluding Live guys out of the Ryder Cup. Zach Johnson's biggest mistake. I'm not going back into that again, like I've mentioned. Um, so yeah, President's Cup this year was a lot of fun watching it. Again, I was happy that Team USA won. Again, circling back, Keegan Bradley, the saga continues. He made the putt that really, it was the last point that USA needed, and so it was real cool for if of all the guys on the team, Keegan Bradley's the one that to make the putt to do that. Um, the story just continues for this guy. um, and like I mentioned, we're not going to know the ending to this saga until we hopefully see a Ryder Cup trophy being given back to Keegan Bradley and Team USA. And so yes, that wraps up the President's Cup. And I kind of just mentioned Live with the Live guys being excluded. So let's dive into it. You guys see right here, smash hat. Yeah, I mean, no secret. A lot of my favorite golfers are on Live, and Live was in my backyard. a couple months ago, and Bolingbrook, a course that I've played numerous times, and I could not pass up the opportunity to go check it out, and I didn't. So I went with my brother, my dad, uh, on the last day of the tournament, and let me tell you guys, this tournament it was a lot of fun. It was well put together, and I'm talking from just like a just normal spectator fan, especially if you know the area of like Bolingbrook. If you're from Illinois, you know this area, and you've been to Bolingbrook. You're thinking, how the hell are you gonna fit thousands of fans? Where the fuck are you gonna park their cars and shit like that? And what the live tournament did, where we parked in this huge ass parking lot, about I don't know, less than 8 minutes away, and they had, I don't know, maybe six, seven, eight shuttle buses. And I'm not talking school buses, I'm talking nice coach buses taking fans back and forth throughout the day. The whole process, and on top of it, it wasn't that expensive. I paid $41 for a ticket. I bought my ticket, I think, about a week and a half before the tournament. It really couldn't say anything bad about this tournament at all, as far as a just generic setup of everything. But now let's dive into the actual golfing part. A lot of speculation that why is Liv going to Bolingbrook? They're going to tear this up. It's not long enough. All this stuff. And to be honest, I was kind of on that fence too. I was kind of leaning like, yeah, I was think it's cool that they came to Bolingbrook. I was just leaning towards, I think they might tear the shit up out of this course, and I'm talking about the score. And I was pleasantly surprised that that was not the case. And from what I saw on Sunday was that it really came down to the greens. And I don't know if it was just all the different, ridges and curves and stuff that the greens all have at Bolingbrook. They obviously mowed them down to the live uh, criteria as far as green speeds. So for us that have played this course throughout this year and years past, lightning fast, I would imagine, was how we would probably rate it. Normal speeds for the live guys. That's really what I saw as the difference maker. I mean, we we walked around and saw as many groups as we could throughout the day, and we probably only saw three, four birdie putts, and I think two of them were within about 2 feet, 3 feet. We saw Kepka on one hole tap in. I think I saw Ian Poulter on another hole tap in. And then for us, like us amateur golfers that play Bolingbrook, if you know the course, well, they turned one of the par fives into a par four for the live guys. So it it definitely was shorter for the live guys, I think, in comparison to some other courses that they probably play throughout the year. But again, I think the course brought challenges for them that either maybe they weren't ready for, or or I mean, it definitely played a factor. And I think one of the factors, I mean, it was a little bit warmer than usual for a late September weekend in Chicago, or suburb of Chicago, I should say. I don't think that played a factor too much. It was pretty hot that day though. But if you played Bolingbrook in the past, if you've been there before, if you're a local, you know Bolingbrook, and I've always said this, you go and play in Bolingbrook, it's either going to be windy as hell, or it's going to rain. Well, if it shit didn't rain at all, I would like some cloud coverage that day, but it was pretty windy because there's not a lot of tree coverage. It's a lot, water, fescue, and houses. Um, and the roughs were pretty, where there wasn't spectators walking, the roughs were very thick. I basically, if you missed the fairway, you probably were struggling to get out of the rough to get on into if you're in a par four. And like I said, I think the biggest thing that I saw was the players struggling on the greens. And don't get me wrong, they shot great scores, but I think I talking with a few people back in July, when we were about to play Bolingbrook, and we were all talking, saying, what do we think the live guy winning score? And we were thinking like 25 under collectively for the 3 days. And I'd have to look it up. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I don't think it got north of 12, 13. Um, but at the end of the day, it was awesome to watch. Again, the whole setup is phenomenal. I mean, when you walked in their concourse area to the driving range, I mean, you're right up these asses on these guys on the driving range. So you're that close. Um, you're. I've been to a couple PGA tournaments before. I've been to the BMW Championship a long time ago when it was at Cog Hill. Uh, PGA, it seems like, it's almost like the president. The only time you're going to get relatively close to these guys is if you better hope that volunteers and security and so forth really screw up. Otherwise, I mean, unless they hit into you, that's the only time you're going to get close to them. Versus this live tournament, not saying that they are not very well protected, they are, but uh, you almost felt like you were kind of right there with them. I mean, right on the tee box, if you were on the fairway, the string they'll call a fence or whatever to keep the spectators, to let them know where the spectators can go and not go. I mean, you were pretty close all the way from tee to green. It very cool experience. If they're at Bolingbrook next year, which I believe they are, uh, I would definitely be going again. It was a lot of fun. The hardest part for for this is that, for one, for the locals, the first hole for us was the 10th hole for live. So your knowledge of, fives over here and 17s over here, that goes out the window. Um, why they did it that way, I'm not sure. Don't know if there was really any logic or reasoning for that. And then on top of it, it's a shotgun start. So what's cool about the shotgun start is, unlike a PGA tournament, being there for 8, 9 hours, unless you're waiting for your specific guy to tee off. So you're either there the ass crack of dawn and you're out of there by 1 o'clock when your guy finishes after you watched him play, or you're, vice versa. You're out of there at the end of the tournament. I don't know which could be worse. This is wrapped up 4.5 hours. We didn't stay for the trophy presentation or anything, but we watched all the final holes and then we left. And so, I mean, 4.5 hours for a professional golf tournament from start to finish, that's pretty cool. But what's hard is that when you're looking for specific golfers and you're on their app, they're through six. Well, that doesn't mean they're through the sixth hole. You got to remember and figure out what hole did they start on, where the hell you're at on the course, where's their next, that was probably the most difficult part. But, we kind of navigated, figured it out, and knowing Bolingbrook in general, for us, for me at least, it was no problem. And again, my brother, my dad, and I, we saw a lot of golfers. We all got to see who we really wanted to see too. Like Bryson, we got to watch him on a par three, almost hole in one. Then the following hole, which was normally is a par five for us, and I can't remember if this was the hole that they converted to a par four or not. Watch Bryson go for it into, I think we watched Terrell Hatton try to go for it into as well, but I think he popped up his 3-wood in classic Hatton fashion. Um, we got to watch Phil on what is normally the first hole for the locals, which was on the 10th hole. We watch him stick it within 8 feet, if my guess, and then miss the birdie putt. um, we got to see as many golfers, which was cool. And then obviously the biggest one that I had to go see was I had to go see Anthony Kim. I got to see Anthony Kim on his last hole, tee it off, and I got to see the second shot. And what was pretty cool was, uh, I mean, unfortunately for Anthony Kim, when you've taken 12 years off of golf, and a lot of the fans that are newer to golf or newer in general probably don't know who Anthony Kim is, but for us that have fans of golf when he was around, and there wasn't a lot of us around that tee box, which I was kind of happy because that meant I could be as close to Anthony, on the tee box as I'm allowed to be, and I can really kind of I don't have to look, above or around people to get a good view of what his, the shot's going to be. But what was real cool is, just kind of being a classic fan, I'm trying to get Anthony Kim to talk to me and, hey, Kay, that's a sweet hat. And I got him to 3 times. He looked me dead in the eye. Hey, thanks, man. Hey, thanks, brother. Real cool. He didn't do that to me in '07 when I saw him. Last time I ever saw him play. So Anthony Kim, he was one of the main reasons why I had to go to Live. I mean, I'm a huge Brooks Koepka fan. I'm a huge Ian Poulter fan. I've liked Phil since he's kind of been on social media over the last 6, 7 years, however long it's been. And there's a few. I mean, I've like watching John Rahm and a few other. I wanted to see Joaquin Niemann play, but my biggest priority was I had to go see Anthony Kim for one hole, and so I'm glad I did. I got to see him his last hole, which was cool. Again, swing looks real good, and I'm hoping for big things for him in the 2025 season for him. But yeah, that was a cool way to cap off the Live tournament for at least myself. So again, if you like golf and you want to watch golf, and the Live is especially for if you're in the area and that Bolingbrook is not that far, I would recommend going next year. Again, it's not as expensive as a PGA event. We were out of there before the Bears game starts, so for us Bears fans, Sunday night, which was good for us. But again, you're there for 4.5 hours, so you're not waking up at the ass crack of dawn to try to beat parking and shit like that or get the first shuttle. And the whole process was painless. I mean, absolutely painless the way they had it set up. So highly recommend, even if you're not a Live golf fan, but you want to go just check it out. I think it's well worth it. And if Liv wants to reach out to me for promoting that, I hope they do. um, so, I mean, we're getting close here to the end. So, what has happened most recently? Uh, and now that we've talked about Liv, and that is we saw Jay Monahan, and I'm going to butcher his name, the president of PIF for the Saudis is Yasser Al Ramian. I'm going to butcher and apologize for that. uh, you know, the rumors, and we saw the videos and pictures. If you haven't, it's on social media. I'm sure you can Google it. They met together for a practice round before a DP World Tournament and played together in the practice round. Rory McIlroy was rumored to be in the group behind them. And listen, I think the media really blew this out of proportion. Why? Because I, I think people were expecting that shit would have been like on paper the next day or something. I don't know. It felt almost like listening sometimes to these politicians and like with the election coming up here, a lot of maybe empty promises. I mean, we don't even know what the hell they talked about during this round. Again, it's all speculation really from the media. But the fact that they met, I mean, they've met once before too on TV. We really didn't care for again, and nothing has really changed all this year. I mean, there's been numerous rumors that they're working on getting PIF to invest in the PGA so the PGA has more money to compete with the Live. We've heard the rumors that at some point they want to merge Live to the PGA, which for the game of golf will be great. For where it stands now, it's from a fan's perspective, it's not great because the only time we're seeing the best golfers play against the best golfers is in the majors. And against the best golfers, some of them are being left out of the Ryder Cup and the President's Cup. Unfair to them because they're being excluded just for being associated and playing on the Live Tour. And I understand that, with the Ryder Cup and everything. Well, it all comes down to FedEx points for at least the top six. Well, bullshit. The captains have picks. Captains could easily go and say, "I'm going to go grab Brooks Koepka. I'm going to go grab John Rahm, you know, even though he wouldn't be on the international team. Um, so again, is this good or bad that they met and played before the DP World event started on Thursday and they played together on practice round? Just like the media, just speculate, I guess, because who knows? Because until we start seeing headway with this shit, all it is speculation. And for me specifically, I'm sick of listening to it. I'm sick of high hopes and everything. It's either shit or get off the pot. And I don't know Jay Monahan specifically. And why would I? But again, my opinion of him is I think he's the one dragging his feet with this shit. Um, I truly believe that if a deal could have been done, it could have been done a long time ago, and we could have somehow merged these. I mean, again, I don't know if it's the PGA is looking to get more out of this. I don't know if it's the live guys that are. I doubt they're the ones asking for more out of this. It's it's getting kind of ridiculous at this point, if I had to be honest. Uh, it shouldn't be this complex to figure out how can we get both tours to coincide peacefully. Players aren't neglected, criticized, persecuted, etc. for being associated with live. The PGA players shouldn't be, you know, I want to say financially not as well up. But I mean the PGA does well. And again, I mean I watched a video of Gary Player and I agree with him, but it's not his decision, nor is it really these players. He made a comment. He goes, because this was attempted to be done long time ago, and he said, I don't know how recent this video was, probably within obviously the last few years since Liv's been around, but is one person seriously worth $500,000 guaranteed? Probably not, because what are they doing? They're just playing the game of golf. We're not saving lives here. I mean, let's just call the spade a spade. Um, and I agree with him. You know, is one person truly? But again, that's what PIF wants to invest in. If someone came knocking on my door and said, "Hey, we think you're worth $250,000 guaranteed for every year. We want you to come play golf." I mean, do I think I'm worth 250,000? Probably not. I'm probably worth $2.50. Uh, but am I going to stop that person from? Am I going to convince that person to, no. If they believe it, okay. So, I mean, again, this kind of is going down a rabbit hole of, are you a live guy or PGA guy? At this point, I like what both. I support both. I like everything the PGA has done, even though some of these smaller tournaments I do wish they would get rid of, like the John Deere Classic. I've said this for years, a wasted tournament. And there's a couple others. Unfortunately, they're not successful as far as the viewerships. And to be honest, is it worth it for some of these golfers? And some of them, it's not worth it at all. Now you're seeing uh, high caliber players back out of some of these smaller tournaments, taking that week off because it's not worth it to them, FedEx Point or not. $2 million purse, $900,000 purse or not, to go to wherever for these smaller tournaments. And that's basically, I think that's what Liv did. They saw some of the negatives that were upsetting the golfers, and they morphed that into their own tour. They're not as spread out, as thin, week over week over week, and a lot of different things. I'm not going to get into that. Back into the Jay Monahan and Piff. again, this is something that if especially now in, as we're getting into the fall, winter months here, and really the tournaments that are going on are really going to be the golfers that are either A, trying to keep their tour card, or B, are trying to get enough points to stay ahead of the game going into the ramped up part of the year, which will really kind of hit towards February, maybe the last week of January when they start playing in kind of like the Hawaii, and then we get towards the waste management. um, Outside of that, again, I think they have the time now to figure this out, and just because they go and play a practice round for God knows if they even played 18 holes or not, it doesn't even matter. It's again, shit or get off the pot between the two of them. If we wanted a deal done, I feel like a deal could have been done at this point, and I truly believe I don't have any knowledge or sources or whatever to back this up. It's just my opinion that Jay Monahan and the PGA are dragging their feet with this shit. Why? I could not tell you. I could only speculate based on what I read and watch on YouTube and stuff like that on the Golf Channel. But I think there's enough people that can get involved to figure this out and figure it out pretty quickly. Not for now, 2025, but 2026. And again, if we're talking about this again, same shit in June of next year, then it's clear as day that one side does not want to work with the other side. And based on everything you kind of see, it almost looks like right now it's the PGA is resisting more than Live. Um, will that be the case 6, 8 months from now? Who knows? We'll see. Again, I'm sick of just seeing, oh, Jay Monahan and PGA, they're meeting with Pitt, and then we don't hear anything after that. Again, maybe there is stuff being worked on behind the scenes right now. Um, I don't know. Nothing's been leaked, and I don't know. You would think that someone that's pretty good at figuring out or has a source inside to figure out what the hell's going on. Right now, you just haven't heard much. So, again, a lot of people were speculating that this was a good thing. I don't think it's good or bad. I just think these two guys are meeting together, socializing, and I'm sure they talked business while they were playing golf, but at the end, and want to show that, hey, there's no hard feelings. We don't hate each other, but again, we have over here the PGA, and we have over here the Live Tour. Same shit. So yeah, that's my little spiel on that. So as we all, as every podcast, I like to kind of just wrap it up with amateur golf, little segment here. And so as an amateur golfer myself, especially for us in the fall, especially in the winter months here, like I'm in the Midwest, and for those that live in cold states where we're going to get snow here pretty soon, how do we stay, how do we keep our swing going? How do we keep improving? How do we keep progressing until we can get back outside and play 18 holes? And like I think I've told people in the past, I'm not the biggest, practice off the mats, but in these times, that's all I have. It's either don't hit balls at all or hit off mats, whether it's into a simulator, whether it's a dome, or you're outside but it's heated, so the ball actually not fly too far, but you got the Top Golf tracers, next to you, just hitting outside. We have so much now with the technology. For indoor facilities, and people are building their own simulators right now in their garages and basements and stuff. I mean, so much different compared to, I'm sure even 15, 10 years ago, where really the only thing people were doing was just putting up nets in their basement and garages and just praying to God that the ball doesn't go through the net and break a window or something. We have so much capabilities now. So how do we as amateur golfers continue to progress in our swing? How do we keep maintaining what we've worked so hard for this year to carry it over into next year and improve on to that? And realistically, I mean, and I get this, you're spending, depending where you go, like an X Golf or some type of dome, like for us locally, the Mistwood Dome, you're spending 45, 65 bucks for an hour. And you're thinking, for an hour, why would I just do a drill for an hour when I can play virtually 18 at Pebble Beach or something? I get that. And especially when you're with your buddies and, you get a couple buckets, you get some, wings and nachos, whatever. You got basketball, hockey, football right above you. You're trying to have a good time. On the other side of that, though, if you are wanting to put in the time and you're okay with spending that kind of money, or even if you're not spending that money, you can find a driving range that has heated bays and you're only spending, I don't know, depending on your local course, wherever you can find buckets of balls, $6 to $12, average price, I'm guessing. What do we do? I mean, we continue to work on the same drills. I mean, we're working on club path, we're working on hand positions, and I mean through the whole swing. And really, I truly think that's the biggest thing we can as amateur golfers work on indoors, because at the end of the day, the ball flight, we're not going to really see the ball flight. I mean, yeah, we'll see it virtually on the screen. Take that with a grain of salt. You're not going to see it in a dome because the dome is only at most, I mean, the multiple domes I've gone to have never been more than 100 yards away. So when you hit a driver, you only see the first 100 yards. After that, who knows what the ball might have done. Um, hitting into nets and screens, you only have 10 feet in front of you, or however far. So you're not really caring about the ball flight so much. You're not really caring about, obviously the course conditions or the driving range conditions because you're not hitting off grass. You're hitting off a console. You're hitting off a mat. Um, so you're not worrying about hitting it as fat as often because, you're not really hitting fat off a mat. You're going to still get the ball out there off, if you did hit it fat, quote unquote. Um, so when we're in domes, and again, I'm not a professional. I'm not an instructor. This is just my personal knowledge of hitting it and practicing at indoor facilities over the last couple of years myself. And the way to continue to improve is just doing the small things. To be honest with you, uh, in the indoor facilities, and that keeps you just, if it's not helping you progress, it's definitely helping you stay where you're currently at the end of the fall season. So you're not, going backwards come springtime. And, you know, these facilities are so well put together nowadays. Some of them even have cameras where you can look at the statistics, angle of attack, club speed, ball speed, apex, etc. All the statistics that half of us as amateur golfers might not even know what the hell to look at or do with. And then you even got ones that they'll put the camera on you, and then all of a sudden you have the video on the big screen that you just hit into, and it's you, and you could put, the lines, where's my club head going? Am I pulling it too far back? Am I over the top? Where's the club face in relation to impact, etc. Um, you know, yes, it costs a pretty penny, but we have a lot of technology really very close to us, all of us, and a lot of these domes are popping up more and more, and it's just it's good for us, especially for, like I said, especially for us winter golfers who we're not going to be able to go outside as often anymore. So that's my little tip there. How do we keep the swing going? Obviously, my biggest thing is as amateur golfers, I've said this before, it's working on the short game. Go work on that technique with the wedges. It's obviously a little tough to work on the putting because some of them have putting greens, some of them don't. The ones that do, usually just pretty flat. It's a standard piece of turf. Again, work on the putting stroke, work on the tempo. Don't worry about, the ball actually going in the hole. Don't worry about that, how fast the ball's coming off, because come springtime and the summertime next year, everybody knows every course you go to, the greens are different from the course you played in last week or the day before. So again, these indoor facilities, it's all about technique. It's all about hand placement. It's all about, you know, hip rotation, etc. It's work on the technique, work on the fundamentals, work on the format of your swing. That will all translate once we get back outside in the springtime. So yeah, that's all I got for you guys this week. Again, I appreciate for you all understanding why I've been out MIA on the podcast over the last couple months. Like I said, I am planning on recording a lot more as some of my at-home projects wrap up here. I do have a couple big things. I'm not announcing today anything, but I do have a couple things in the works that hopefully I'll be announcing over the next episode or two, and on my social media. Always remember to follow at underscore that number two bad on X and Instagram. Subscribe and follow us on all major social media podcasts, uh, apps, YouTube. And yeah, appreciate you guys. And let's wrap up fall golf in 2024 on a high note here. And as always, let's go low.